Good evening, and tonight we're going underground to medieval Europe, where secret dugouts turned Earth into a temporary shield shaped by terrain, tools, law, and cooperation. Not magic, just neighbors and dirt doing the job, hiding families and food when weeks went lean, answers to raids, short harvests, and heavy dews. One modern habit, airing out a room, would quietly betray you here. If you truly enjoy nights like this, feel free to like and subscribe, only if it helps you wind down. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is right now, city or countryside, sun up or dark. Let your jaw unclench and let your shoulders slow and ease. Tonight's story is a key turning softly in a quiet lock, and as the hum of your small desk fan softens and the room grows hushed, let the lights feel dimmer while we step quietly toward a night centuries ago. A hawthorn hedge lines the field margin. A distant bell folds the hour into the dark, and the path holds a watchful quiet. This village is a quilt with one hidden square. You crouch beside a low banked mound at the hedge foot. You feel the wet grit on your fingertips from the earthen wall. A damp earth smell gathers near your hands, cool and simple. Under a tight seam of turf, a faint ember glow shows for a breath. It narrows at once. A soft scrape inside pulls a cover across it, and the night goes plain again. Along lanes like this, people slept with one ear open. Raids could skim by, quick and light, taxes pressed in, with dues counted after harvest. Hunger made plans small. Winter drafts found every crack in timber walls. No drama here, just people who prefer soup warm and heads low. Ordinary families use the earth as a temporary shield. They cut shallow rooms into banks and old pits, then capped them with turf. Little mouths at ground level took air, and small doors kept notice down. Fire sat low, sheltered, with thin smoke teased into hedges or drawn through longer runs. From the lane, it passed for a lump of ground, and heat held in the soil kept bodies steady. When danger moved fast, or when cold and costs piled up, this choice made sense. We ease a little closer to the mound and ask what need shaped it. A hedge grips the lane at dusk. You wait in the gap, listening for riders. Damp grass brushes your boots. Cold air carries a thin thread of wood smoke. A bell far off counts the hour. A watch patrol sometimes clicks past in pairs. They keep voices low and note any light at a door. You stay still and let the hedge be your wall. Roaming bands use roads like this when food is short. Sudden levies call men and carts to the manor yard. A thin harvest leaves bins and bellies uneasy. The manor reeve notes who can pay and who cannot, and he prefers doors he can see from the lane. A tithe collector may pass next, weighing grain by peck and guess. A border raid might follow a week later, looking for tools and cattle. Ordinary homes sit in the open, easy to count and easy to tap. Open huts sit in plain view. Because open huts were visible, therefore hiding underground reduced attention. It was like switching off location sharing. Privacy, medieval edition. Less shape meant fewer questions. A dugout turns the earth into a lid that closes with quiet. Families used iron spades and a mattock to cut a low chamber under a bank, then slipped a turf roof back on top. The shape matched the ground, so sight and sound leaked less, and the small hearth could be kept low, with smoke thinned through brush. It sheltered people and stores without announcing itself. Stores sat nearby in cool soil, safe from quick hands, and voices carried softer than in a shining doorway. A narrow vent could sit in the hedgerow, and close fast. The door could be set back behind thorn and a hurdle. People kept shoes clean and turned, so footprints did not point straight at the spot. Discovery brought penalties. Fines could strip savings, seizure of grain could drain the winter store, and rough questioning could scare a household into silence without leaving a mark. Tunnels also had their own risks, like stale air or a dripping roof after heavy rain, so care beat speed. A wet floor chilled feet and spirits, and a loose roof timber could sag. Neighbors might notice a new pile of spoil if you did not spread it well. Lords and officers disliked hidden stores during tithe season. Better to be patient and quiet than bold and loud. The choice of ground mattered more than bragging at the fire. Now turn to the earth itself and to the patches of land that hold quietly. Your palm tests a low bank under thorn and hazel. Gritty loam clings to your fingertips, and a beetle clicks under a leaf while a thorn snags your sleeve lightly. A probing stick gives the first answer. You drive it in to feel where the ground turns tough or spongy, or twist a small auger to bring up a core. Firmer clays and loams keep an edge. Shifty sands fall in. Peat reeks of water and will swallow a wall. A cut in a clayey bank can hold, but a cut in a sandy ridge can slump without warning. You watch for water lines and seepage marks, because a sweet spot in dry weather can flood after one hard rain. Soil picks shape the plan. A heavy clay face can be trimmed smooth, then stepped or battered so the earth is not tempted to slide. A mixed loam lets you square corners and carve niches for pegs. Gravel streaks worn of crumble. You test after a wet day and after a dry one, looking for the crust that stays set. You note any fresh cracks. A green ditch nearby hints at a high water table, and low hollows promise puddles. A light bank with old root scars is safer than a flat that gleams with silt. Cover matters as much as the cut. Hedges, tree roots, and uneven ground break straight lines and shade small scars. A hedge boundary along the edge of a common pasture gives lawful cover, foot traffic to blend with, and a reason for paths. Old roots stitch a roof and carry sound into the hedge, not the open air. Brush and thorn hide a vent or a latch. A fold in the land keeps candle, light from carrying. Think of it like parking where cameras don't point. Angles keep eyes off you. You choose a place where the bank faces away from the village lane and the ridge. You pick the lee side of a knoll, so smoke, if any, drifts into leaves. You dodge places where sheep chew a slope bare. You use a fallen trunk or a stump to excuse tool marks. A field corner behind a tangled hedgerow hides the door line without painting a target. You avoid the back of a stream bend, where water undercuts and turns a neat face to soup. Structure follows the dirt. Clay and firm loam carry weight and keep a clean face, while sand and silt need boards right away. The first cut is narrow and shallow to read the grain, then widened only where the roof can spread load into packed sides. A turf cap is lighter than a full sod mat. A small cell under a root mesh needs fewer posts than a broad room in open soil. Because cohesive soil holds shape, therefore walls stand with less timber. Real estate still wins. A good site trims risk and effort from the start. Less timber to haul, fewer posts to wedge, fewer midnight repairs after heavy rain. You can cut quieter, backfill tighter, and leave fewer straight lines in a world that scans for straight lines. Smart siting lowers labor and lowers the chance of a telltale slump or flood from the first spadeful. Now, the digging begins, and the spoil must vanish as if it never rose. Lean toward that first cut of earth and what to do with it. A single hooded lamp sits low by the cut while a lookout stands on the lane. The hood pushes light downward and keeps the field dark. The watcher is often a teen or a child, runner who knows every hedgeline and track. He listens for hoofbeats and stray voices and taps a stick if trouble comes. Lamplight trembles on packed soil, and the cold bites through wool. A spade bites into loam in quiet chops. Iron scrapes stone, and breath fogs in short puffs. The first cut is either a short shaft or a shallow ramp chosen by the soil. Firm clay can take a narrower, steeper entry where a man can slide down. Loose sand or crumbly marl wants a gentler slope to keep the mouth from slumping. Chalk or hardpan needs a pick to break it, then a shovel to clear it. A square of turf is lifted and set aside to cap the entrance between shifts. Wicker baskets or stout sacks sit ready for spoil. A chain of hands passes each load out, the basket rim rough against your palm. The far end of that chain spreads the soil thin under brush, fills cart ruts, and dusts the edges of ditches so the color blends. Because piles draw eyes, therefore, spoil was scattered or relocated. It's like deleting history, not just closing tabs. A little is carried to the midden where fresh muck hides fresh earth. A little is shaken into a streamside reed bed where current and roots swallow the change. A child runner often trots the path first to test the quiet way to these spots. Baskets walk that route one by one to keep feet off the same grass again and again. A branch sweeps light footprints where the lane is soft. Sacks ride only when a cart is already going, and only what can pass for feed or ash goes with it. The brighter clods are turned under leaf litter and pressed flat with a boot. Stealth has housekeeping. Thin spreading pays off when the sun comes up. The ground looks unremarkable by daylight, a mix of old tracks and wind-blown dust. A grazing path still looks like a grazing path. A plow furrow takes the same line it took last year. Heaps would draw a reeve or a rider in a heartbeat, but thin dust vanishes into the day. What stands out under the moon gets folded back into the field, quiet and dull. The cut walls now stand on their own only for a short while, and the spoil is gone from sight. The next problem is inside the hole, where the walls will creep and the ceiling will settle. Now turn to shoring and lining before the earth tries to close in. You wedge a greenwood post into the trench edge and lean your weight. The wood gives a tight creak. You nudge the foot a thumb's width and eye the plumb, a peg tapped home with a muffled thud. Damp clay is cool on your knuckles. The post sits firm, and the roof line feels steadier. Cross pieces follow. Shallow notches bite into the uprights, and you set a ledger along the wall. Wattle panels and daub take their place, the woven rods catching the mix, clay smoothing under a flat palm. Kin bring carpentry help, and borrowed tools are common custom. An auger passes from cousin to cousin, and a single good saw is shared by the lane. Bracing grows in a grid that makes sense in the dark. You stitch shorter poles between posts, then lash where a joint feels weak. In the hearth corner, you lay a rim of clay and small flat stones, giving the ember spot a safer bed. Because earth presses inward, therefore frames distribute the weight. The idea is simple, like a phone case taking the bumps. The clay skin can crack and mend, but the ribs keep shape. Fire sits small, more glow than flame. A clay lip blocks rolling embers, and the stones spread heat without biting the earth. You whitewash the near wall if lime is at hand, which helps spot damp before it spreads. The hearth lives away from the main braces, so a stray spark does not find a seam. A worn pot hangs low, content with a slow stew. Every beam gets a partner. A tie runs across the span, and knee braces lean into corners that want to sag. Pegs pinch joints that would creep when the soil swells. Gravity is a strict landlord. A sagging roof is a constant risk, and a wet week can turn that into a collapse. Greenwood flexes and warns before it fails, but old dead wood snaps without manners. The work is careful rather than grand. You cap timber feet with flat stones where the ground stays wet, stealing a little rise from the damp. You tuck bark scraps or moss between a post and the wall to stop a rattle. If the frame hums when you push, you add a brace. If crumbs of earth tick the floor, you renew the daub. Kin note these things without fuss, and a neighbor's bit of rope makes a good tourniquet for a shaky joint. The payoff is quiet but real. Lined walls shed crumbs and drip less onto bedding and stores. Grain sacks stay drier at the top, and the sleeping mat gathers less grit. A firm lattice also gives hooks and pegs a place to bite, so tools and baskets have a home. Food stacks off the floor, and a clear path stays clear. Small fixes, small gains, steady nights. Hold your breath for a beat and feel the stillness press around the frame. Air and heat will have their say in what lasts. Settle for a moment, then consider how smoke can leave without telling tales. Take one slow breath in. Let it out, and let your shoulders drop. Take a second breath the same way. Exhale, and feel the weight slide off your shoulders. Take a third, steady breath. Exhale again, shoulders loose and low. Border raids, taxes, and thin harvests sent families under the sod. Because danger could arrive faster than help, therefore earth as cover made sense. They sought firm subsoil above wet ground. A slope that drained after rain helped. They picked tucked spots by banks and hedgerows. The edge of woods worked, not the open track. Sandy faces slumped. Flood flats soaked. Those were skipped. Think of it like choosing the quiet corner of a park, away from the path. Each household agreed on a lookout habit. One pair of eyes watched while others worked or rested. A sturdy spade was the essential tool. Iron edges bit into loam while the wooden handle took the strain. Spoil went into sacks or baskets and was spread thin under brush. Sods were saved to cap the roof once the digging stopped. Neat side up. After the first hollow came the braces. Short timbers, forked stakes, or wattle panels propped the roof and walls. If shoring was neglected, collapse was a real risk. So even tired crews set props before they stretched out. Cool earth air crosses your cheeks. Lamplight makes a small golden circle on packed soil. Your breath steadies in the cool dark, while a faint ember glow seems to tick at the edge of hearing. Patient hands make safer rooms. Quiet work takes longer, which suits anyone who likes their ceiling to stay put. A scrape might take a night. Fitting and bracing took more nights, and that patience paid off. Spades move in a steady rhythm, low and careful, and talk stays near a whisper. Take one more easy breath as you picture the lamp turned low. See the wick trimmed and the flame small, light soft on palms and tools. A cloth at the entry keeps the glow from wandering, and heavy steps stay outside. Feel a soft blanket weight settle across your shoulders. The ground sits steady tonight. No rush now. The ground is not going anywhere tonight, and the plan holds. Next comes air and warmth without a giveaway, arranged so the earth keeps the secret while bodies stay comfortable. Keep your breath slow as you glance toward the hearth place. You coax the embers in a small clay stove with a stick and a steady breath. The coals blink, the clay warms, and a faint wood smoke thread is warm against the chill. Small vents sit in the earth above you, cut where the bank rises a little. Each one is narrow and angled so the plume bends, like a kinked straw that won't blow straight. Some are split into two thin throats, so the stream divides and thins before it meets the night. A thin wisp slips into a hedge's shadow. A clay hearth or small brazier lifts the ember bed off the floor and keeps ash tidy. Air needs a partner path to feed it, so a low intake hole near the ground draws in fresh breath, and an upper slit gives the used air somewhere to go. Too much pull and sparks race up, then smoke rolls back at you. Too little and the glow sulks, then starves, and suffocation is the quiet danger that follows. In some towns, watchmen paced under curfew, calling the hour and noting lights and smoke, so the stakes for a careless fire were not only comfort. Heat is managed, not flaunted. Ember beds are spread thin, with a low lid or a flat stone over the mouth, so the flame never climbs. Warm stones, tucked near your feet, stretch the comfort after the glow fades. Because smoke rises clean in still air, therefore vents smear and cool it. A short turf collar or a basket weave at the exit slows the stream and steals its shine. Think of it like switching to low power mode. Cozy has an alibi. Warmth comes without a tall flag that tells the lane or the hillside where you hide. A smoker's straight ribbon is easy to see against still dawn, and that is what watchful eyes seek, so you use bends, splits, and cool surfaces until the sign is dull and broken. The vent tips sit in places where smoke makes sense anyway, like near a stump hole, a ditch lip, or an old stone heap, and the outlets are small enough that the night can swallow what leaves. The room breathes at a careful pace. A palm over the intake finds a soft draw, not a hungry tug. The fire stays at ember heat, with meals cut into small pieces to cook fast, lids tight to hold heat, and a quiet hand on the fuel. If you must boil, the pot sits on a ring that leaves a gap for air but blocks the bright core, and you wait for a breeze or a drizzle that will blur the trace. Discovery is most likely when the air is still and proud plumes go up in straight lines. So you treat calm weather like a bell that says, wait. Getting in and out must be as quiet as the fire. Turn to doors that don't look like doors, and paths that vanish. A turf-covered trapdoor lifts under your hands. The slab has a soft blanket weight. A rope ladder waits in the dark. Fibers are rough in your grip as you climb. The cover settles back with care. Turf scent rides the air as the seam presses tight. A brush mat can pass for wind-blown litter. A wooden lid can hide under a tidy heap of straw, with loose stalks settling with a soft rustle. A crawl space can open behind stacked fuel, where peat bricks or cut wood sit like a wall. A branch becomes a broom to blur footprints. Decoy steps can lead past the spot, then vanish at a stream bed or stony patch. Paths angle and zag through hedges, not straight from door to door, because straight paths signal use. Therefore, approaches were broken and erased. A lookout keeps watch near the lane or field edge. A single tap on the sod or a quick whisper through a vent is a known signal, passed by custom. It was like two-factor authentication for your doorway. Welcome mat not included. A brush mat drinks rain and looks ordinary by morning. A turf lid grows with the season, grass roots knitting into the frame. A straw-topped hatch changes with each forkful, so no set pattern betrays it. Even a crawl space behind fuel piles blends in with daily work. Tools lean. A bucket sits. A cart ruts the mud, and the cover is just another thing in the yard. To a curious neighbor, the entry reads as clutter, not a secret. A careful household treats tracks like loud talk. Brush-outs follow after visits. Sheep are walked across the area to stamp a mess of prints. Feet shift along a hedgerow where birds make constant scuffs. If fresh snow falls, people stay put. If a thaw makes clay slick, they lift on hands and knees to spread weight, then sweep. A watcher also listens for patrol habits. A reeve can circle after sunset. A taxman can check for hoarded grain in lean months. Discovery brings trouble that is dull but real. Food can be confiscated. Orders to dismantle the dugout can follow, with a fine to close the lesson. The cost is heavy for poor families, so the disguise earns its quiet keep. A good door adds small tells only the household knows. A knot of twine sits at the hinge. A peg slides under a lip. A tiny hole in the sod shows a sliver of moonlight for the hand. These details speed entry when nerves are tight. They also limit noise, which keeps the shelter secret and the pulse steady. A rope ladder pulls up after the last descent. The turf lid nestles down flat, its cut edges lined with wet soil. In that moment, the field looks untouched. Above, a lookout drifts away with a yawn. Below, a faint ember pop and close breath mark the shift from danger to routine. Once inside, habits take over to keep bodies warm and tempers even. Now we turn to bedding, storage, and the quiet rhythm of those hours. A clay lamp burns low on a stone ledge. Voices sit near a whisper, and a child is already asleep with one hand under a cheek. A cup set down with barely a clink. The tang of lamp oil hangs in the cool, packed earth air. Raised platforms line one side so bedding stays off the floor. Each person has a straw pallet and a simple wool blanket, heavy enough to feel like a small shield. Condensation beading along a cool wall. The pallet keeps the blanket dry, and the dry blanket keeps the sleeper steady. A set rota runs even in hiding. Adults take turns at the covered entrance, then at the coals, then at a light doze. Quiet hours are agreed. Tasks are passed by. Touch on a shoulder, or a brief nod more than by words. The aim is simple. Do the needed thing. Make almost no noise. Shallow drip trenches ring the floor and feed into a small sump. Cloth is hung from a rope to dry, not heaped, and never near where heads rest. Lids sit tight on jars and pots to keep damp from creeping in. Because damp chills bones, therefore sleepers used raised pallets and straw. Storage is tidy and spare. Grain sits in sacks on pegs, lifted from the ground. Root crops lie in a pit lined with straw, then covered with boards. Water stays in covered skins to limit spills and smell. It was like camping in a basement during a storm. The air can turn flat. An illness from damp or stale air was a trade-off. So someone cracks the vent for a short time when the outside is quiet. Small chores keep the place from sagging. A broom of bundled twigs lifts dust from the floor. Straw gets fluffed, and blankets get shaken only when the risk outside is low. The drip trench is scraped clear with a short stick, slime flicked away. Not glamorous, but warm enough. Noise rules run right alongside the chores. Boots are wrapped in cloth, so footfalls stay dull. A pot lid is cushioned with a twist of rag so it taps softly. The entrance cover is propped with a wedge so it will not grind on dirt. People chew slowly. A cough is smothered in a sleeve. Children learn a game of stillness, and soon it becomes normal. Light and air are managed like shared food. The ember bed is kept small and steady, more glow than flame, and the lamp's wick is trimmed so smoke stays thin. Vent holes are shallow, cut underbrush or a cart, so the breeze takes the odor upward and not across open ground. Meals are simple and quick to redo later, so a knock on the cover does not mean a long cleanup. Staying warm without staying wet sets the rhythm. Feet and cloaks dry by the coals, but not too close. The platform edges gain extra boards to block drafts. Wool hoods get hung on pegs where the last of the heat drifts. When the pallet is lifted for a sweep, the earth below shows a darker patch, then dries again in the next hours. Living minds the clock, even when clocks are few. The watch changes on a quiet count, and hands touch in passing. Tools go back to the same hook every time, so no one gropes in the dark and knocks ajar. A sack for scraps keeps pests down, and the spindle, the knife, the ladle, all have their corner. Sleep is gathered in short bundles, and the coals are fed at the change, so the next person wakes warm. What happens in whispers adds up. The straw pallet and the simple wool blanket stay dry. Food keeps, tools stay sharp, and children wake less with chills. The coals still glow at morning, and the floor stays sound. The habits look small, but they stack into safety. Simple habits turned a hole into workable shelter. In the pause after chores, the wider village feels close again, its fields waiting and its paths quiet. Let the room quiet as you take another slow breath. Take a slow inhale through your nose. Let a long exhale leave your mouth. Soil gives back a faint, cool scent. That calm sits over you like a light blanket. Hidden doors wore sod and leaves, so they looked like nothing special. Erased footprints came from a quick sweep with a bundled branch on the way out. Because smoke or tracks could draw attention. Therefore, the vent was angled to break a plume and thin the trail, and the doorway was lost under turf. It opened under a hedge or a bank, so wind scrambled the trace. Packed earth made a mute wall and roof. The muted hush let earth drink sound until footsteps softened and voices stayed low. Air sat cool on cheeks. A slow ember glowing without a flame gave a tiny warmth and a point of light. Your brow can stop trying to be the village lookout. It can idle for a minute. Take one more unhurried breath in. Let it out slow and roll your shoulders loose. Think of it like switching your phone to silent and dimming the screen. Let your jaw unclench. Ordinary tools and steady hands did almost everything. A wooden spade cut the turf. A short iron shovel bit into clay. Baskets and ropes hauled it clear. A neighbor held the brush door while another brushed tracks. Children stamped the floor firm. The cook minded the fire so smoke stayed thin. A peg and cord kept the lid snug. At night, someone sat a short watch by the vent to feel the draft and listen. Small things done steady kept the place safe. The family kept a simple code of knocks or whispers for returns, clear enough to tell friend from stranger at the lid. The village held the wider choices outside the doorway. Neighbors shared signals and watched paths. Customs shaped when to vanish and when to sleep at home. Some seasons made hiding common, others rare, and custom remembered the right times. travel, tax rounds, and harvest dates set the risk. Let's ease into how villages balanced secrecy, risk, and timing. Elders lean by the village gate as riders clop along the road. They keep their voices low and their faces plain. Wind tugs at cloaks, and a bell marks the distance from the church or the manor yard. A thin metal note. A gate pin clicks as it settles. Hands clasp in quiet oaths among neighbors. Signals are simple and shared, like a lantern shaded twice in a window, or a bundle hung on a hedge. A priest sometimes looks the other way, and a reeve or headman shapes what counts as custom rather than trouble, so the rules bend just enough to help the weak without inviting a scold from the Lord. Snow seals the fields and slows the lanes. Harsh winters push families below ground for a night or a week when fuel runs thin. Riders on a raid, a tax round on the calendar, or a poor harvest do the same, each in their own way. Bare branches trace the sky while people wait for a knock that never comes. Root cellars double as cover. The same cool pit that keeps turnips and apples firm can hold a bench and a blanket when the village chooses to vanish for a spell. Boards laid on packed earth make a dry patch for tools, bread, and a jug. The air smells of clay and straw, and it stays steady when the wind outside lifts dust. A reeve walks the boundary and counts hearths, and a headman hears whispers before they grow. A priest warns against false swearing, but blesses bread for the pit all the same. Lords post dues, and town officers collect fines, so people weigh penalties or confiscation balanced against hunger and fear. A council by the gate might nod to one shelter and refuse another, not out of spite, but to keep the village from drawing heat it cannot bear. Endings are practical. When danger passes, a dugout is filled in and the turf moved back, or it becomes storage for grain and tools, the root cellar again. Sometimes it is left as a low mound by a hedge, a hump that gathers thistle and nettle while sheep graze over it. A spade thuds, the soil settles, and the place returns to the map of forgettable bumps and hollows. Costs weigh on every plan. Because shelters cost labor and timber, therefore villages use them sparingly. Think of it like keeping a backup generator you hope not to need. Insurance, medieval style. Dugouts were community backup plans, not everyday homes. They lived in the same web as the bell, the gate, the priest, and the reeve, ready to absorb a shock when the road sent one. Let the ground close and the present room return. Let the village recede and the room you're in come back gently. Thank you for listening tonight. Your attention gave space to the story of this ground, like a faint ember of quiet near the edge of hearing. Thank you for staying with the slow parts. You made room for small details and quiet links. I'm glad you came along. Thanks for your good company. Medieval underground dugouts were practical shelters shaped by land, tools, and rules, turning earth into a brief shield for families and food. Let that single idea settle, then fade. You do not need to keep any more than that. Let it be simple. It can wait in the background while you rest. The earth above sits quiet, holding its own small secrets without strain. Air in your room feels cool and still. Let your breathing stay slow. You can leave worry for morning. Take one last slow breath. There is nothing to remember and nothing to hold up. The story can fade while you rest. Let your jaw loosen. Let your shoulders settle heavy under a soft blanket weight. You are off duty now. I wish you an easy night and a steadier morning ahead. You have done enough for today. Let thoughts stack neatly, like pots on a shelf. Daylight will help with the rest. You will have time when you wake. Let your pillow carry your head. Listen for the smallest sound in your room. It might be your own calm breath. Let the earth close quiet, fade back to your room's soft hush. Before sleep, there is nothing else to do. If it slips away, let it. Good night.